access to the moon, we are developing the technologies to achieve an unprecedented human and robotic presence 240,000 miles from home. Our experience on the moon this decade will prepare us for an even greater adventure in the universe, human exploration of Mars. In January 2023, NASA announced a new plan to lay pipe on the moon. The Lunar South Pole Oxygen Pipeline would become the first permanent human infrastructure to be installed up there, and this would be a major first step towards establishing in situ resource utilization. The idea of the pipeline is to transport high purity oxygen from a production source to a storage plant located near the future moon base. NASA has already developed a process that they call molten regolith electrolysis, or MRE, which they will use to extract specific elements from the lunar dust, which has a large amount of oxygen already stored in it. The oxygen will be used for supplying human habitats, pressurized rovers, and even to serve as oxidizer propellant for launch vehicles departing the moon. The reason that NASA wants to build a pipeline is that the energy required to move the stored oxygen around the surface on rovers would actually be more intensive than the energy required to extract the oxygen in the first place, which would make the entire process unsustainable. So, NASA is proposing a 5-kilometer long pipeline to transport oxygen gas on the moon. The pipe material itself would be manufactured robotically on the moon using in situ aluminum metal obtained through MRE. NASA has a plan for a fully automated machine that would extrude the aluminum into a pipe shape, like the same way you make rigatoni pasta. This pipeline would support a flow rate of 2 kilograms of oxygen per hour and could supply a moon base with up to 10,000 kilograms per year, which is the amount that NASA is projecting will be required for a self-sustaining base. These oxygen extraction technologies are planned to be demonstrated at large scale on the moon as early as 2024 and provide direct support to Artemis astronauts as early as 2026. In November 2022, NASA awarded a $57 million contract to develop a lunar surface construction system. The recipient of that money is ICON, a leader in advanced construction technologies and large-scale 3D printing. In 2018, ICON accomplished the first fully 3D printed house in the United States. In 2021, ICON began work on Mars Dune Alpha, a 3D printed habitat at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The 1,700 square foot structure simulates a realistic Mars habitat that NASA astronauts will use in training missions as they prepare for long duration trips to deep space. Project Olympus is ICON's latest move to research and develop space-based construction systems to support planned exploration of the moon and beyond. ICON's Olympus system is intended to be a multi-purpose construction system primarily using local lunar and Martian resources as building materials to further the efforts of NASA to establish a sustained lunar presence. The idea is to use the lunar regolith and melt it into a cement-like base that can be laid down by a fully automated 3D printing robot. NASA has actually provided ICON with samples of real moon dust that were collected during the Apollo program to help them develop their manufacturing process. The regolith will mix with a resin-like chemical that can be cured and hardened by UV radiation from the sun, which is actually the same process we use to cure dental castings for your teeth. The first tech demonstration for Project Olympus is set to happen as early as 2026 and would mark a giant milestone in human civilization, our first constructed habitat on another world. ICON is also developing an infrastructure system for the lunar surface that would include roads and landing pads. These are more important than you might think. One of the greatest impacts of human activity on the moon's surface will be kicking up dust, massive amounts of dust. It's been estimated that the force exerted by the engines during a Starship landing on the moon could kick up 1,000,000 pounds of surface particles. And similarly, driving around in rovers and pressurized habitat vehicles will stir up a lot of surface dust as well. So, to minimize our impact on the natural environment of the moon, it's actually much better to lay down solid landing pads and roadways. Utilizing those new roads on the moon will be the next generation of lunar rovers. The Lunar Terrain Vehicle, or LTV, is scheduled to arrive on the moon following Artemis 3, possibly as early as Artemis 4. The design is pretty similar to the side-by-side ATVs that are commonly used for hunting and farming. The rover could be driven by an astronaut behind the wheel or remotely controlled. NASA is even experimenting with the possibility that this could function as an autonomous vehicle. This also means that NASA can use the LTV to continue to conduct scientific or mission-related work even when no humans are on the moon. The LTV is going to be critical for searching out water, ice, and other lunar resources, which will in turn help NASA select the best site for the more permanent elements of the base camp. Going one step further will be NASA's Habitable Mobility Platform, which would be the first pressurized rover vehicle with an independent life support system. That means astronauts wouldn't have to wear spacesuits to operate the vehicle and could spend hours or even days on excursions into the lunar landscape. The HMP is scheduled to arrive on the moon sometime between Artemis 5 and 8. The development of new spacesuits for the Artemis program has actually been one of the biggest concerns for achieving the goal of returning humans to the moon. While NASA debuted their next generation spacesuit concept several years ago, they ran into major troubles with actually getting them manufactured at a reasonable price in the timeline required. It got so bad that the old suit design had to be scrapped entirely and replaced with a new spacesuit that NASA has contracted out to Axiom Space, a private American aerospace company. NASA awarded them $228 million in funding to pick up the fumble and have a moonwalking system ready to go for Artemis 3. This contract was awarded in September 2022, and the new concept design is expected to be released for the first time in the spring of 2023. These new extravehicular suits will have to be totally different from the design that we have grown familiar with seeing on spacewalks at the ISS. A lunar mobility suit has to stand up to the gravity of the moon and resist the incredibly sharp and abrasive dust that the astronauts will encounter there. Back in the Apollo era, astronauts who walked on the moon had trouble with tiny shards of lunar regolith actually penetrating their suits and causing irritation. Since there's never been liquid water on the moon, the rocks up there aren't smooth and round like the ones on Earth. They are incredibly sharp and jagged. Watching all of these projects come together over the next decade is going to be pretty spectacular. The future of humanity as a multi-planetary species is being built right now, one step at a time. But what do you think a habitat on the moon is going to look like in the future? Drop your theories in the comments down below. Meet us back here every week for more updates on everything aerospace industry and interstellar exploration related. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up today if you liked it. That really helps us out for real. And subscribe to the Space Race for more videos just like this. We do one long form essay and one news update every week. And if you'd like more, we've got 2 more on the screen for you right now.
Good evening, I'm Hamna Nabaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the News Hour tonight, President Biden makes his re-election campaign official, betting his accomplishments and vision for the country will negate concerns about his age.
The humanitarian situation in Sudan deteriorates further amid an uneasy ceasefire.
And singer, actor, and activist Billy Porter on his return to music and on becoming unapologetically himself.
You know, art creates critical thinkers. And critical thinkers are leaders, not followers.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by...
Actually, you don't need vision to do most things in life. Yes, I'm legally blind, and yes, I'm responsible for the user interface. Data visualization. If I can see it and understand it quickly, anyone can. It's exciting to be part of the team driving the technology forward. I think that's the most rewarding thing. People who know media.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular has been offering no-contract wireless plans designed to help people do more of what they like. Our US-based customer service team can help find a plan that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in
You can support us by subscribing. The global effects of the Ukraine war resonate in all the conflicted parts of the world. A series of tension-escalating encounters also took place in the South Pacific just after the Middle East mingling last week. The dangerous attempts of the Chinese Navy against Taiwan have mobilized the US 7th Fleet and Russia's Pacific Fleet. The focus of the world suddenly shifted from Eastern Europe to the South China Sea. It's known that the US, Chinese, and Russian navies have been very active in the South China Sea in the last 2 weeks. The joint exercises of the US 7th Fleet with the Philippines, while China and Russia mobilized their navies. In this video, we will talk about the exercises of the US Navy in the South China Sea. Let's examine together what happened in the China-USA-Taiwan Triangle and the developments in the South China Sea. As part of a joint military exercise with the Philippines, the US Navy will sink a mock warship in the South China Sea on April 26, 2023. Both the United States and the Philippines stressed that the live fire exercise was not a response to the growing tensions over China and Taiwan. But in both cases, Beijing is not happy. It responds by organizing its own phased military activity, which includes actual warships and warplanes deployed around Taiwan, an autonomous island that Beijing lays claim to. The tit-for-tat war games underscore a reality that US presidents increasingly have to contend with as the 21st century progresses. More than a century after President Theodore Roosevelt made the United States the preeminent naval power in the Pacific, that position is under threat because China is trying to displace the United States on this issue. The growing rivalry between the US and China over Pacific dominance is believed to have the potential to determine geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region for the next half-century. Currently, ongoing maritime disputes pit China against several Asian countries. For example, China regularly challenges the maritime rights of Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia in the South China Sea, and Japan in the East China Sea. But these waters are also of great strategic importance for the United States. This is where China is flexing its growing military might against US allies and partners, especially Taiwan, which the US is committed to defending. There are many views that if a war were to break out between China and the United States, the South China Sea would most likely be a major theater, with the spark being Chinese aggression against Taiwan. So where will the conflict in the South China Sea lead? For centuries, dozens of islands, shallows, reefs, shores, and cliffs in the South China Sea have been seen as little more than hazard to shipping. But with the discovery of massive oil and gas reserves and multi-billion-dollar fisheries in the 1970s, the previously largely ignored sea has received significant attention from countries where the coastline meets it. This has led to a resurgence of conflicting ownership claims over the sea. China currently claims legal rights over much of the South China Sea that extend far beyond the limits set by the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. This claim by China, represented by 9 lines on maps, coincides with the legally recognized maritime and land rights of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. Over the past decade, China has engaged in low-level coercive activities called gray zone tactics, such as the small-scale Chinese Coast Guard deployment in disputed waters and the deployment of Chinese military-trained civilians aboard fishing vessels. The aim is to harass others and assert Chinese maritime rights outside of legal Chinese waters recognized under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Since 2013, China has built artificial islands, several reefs and runways in the shallows, military bases with radar technology, and missile launch capabilities. In 2016, a UNCLOS Annex 7 arbitration panel ruled that China's 9-line claims were illegal and denied China's rights to maritime properties in the Philippines' legal waters. But despite the resolution's legally binding nature, China continued to militarize its artificially constructed islands and harass neighboring countries' military and fishing vessels. Also, US Navy vessels sailing legally in the waters of the South China Sea were not allowed to pass. Successive US administrations have expressed concern about developments at sea. In 2020, then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo published the US position in the South China Sea, rejecting China's maritime claims and bullying tactics as illegal. Nowhere is the code-based maritime order more threatened than in the South China Sea, his successor Antony Blinken said in 2021. So why is the South China Sea so important to the United States? The answer lies entirely in economic and power policy. About a third of the world's maritime transport passes through the South China Sea. In total, more than $3.4 trillion worth of products, from rubber ducks to cars, are transported over these waters each year. The sea connects the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean, providing the flow of trade from East Asian countries to and from billions of people in South Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. It's also exactly where 14% of all US maritime trade passes. The South China Sea is a crucial route for goods to and from the United States. Without this route, the products we use every day will be slow to ship and cost more. In addition, rich oil and gas deposits make this place attractive. About 30% of all global crude oil passes through the South China Sea. There is also an estimated $11 billion worth of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas deposits, as well as undiscovered oil and gas offshore. In addition, more than half of all fishing vessels in the world operate in the South China Sea. For economic reasons alone, the United States and the rest of the world need open trade routes and sea routes in the South China Sea. Preventing a single country from controlling these trade routes and resources is a crucial policy concern for Washington. While the economy plays an important role, China's actions in the South China Sea are part of a much broader offensive campaign. Beijing views land and sea control in the region through the lens of its national security. It seeks to reflect its power in the region and to defend mainland China. Ultimately, as acknowledged by the US government, China wants to overthrow the status quo by replacing the US as the superpower. This power struggle takes shape in the South China Sea, with regular clashes between US Navy ships and China's naval militia and navy. Artificial islands in the South China Sea provide China with military capabilities far beyond the mainland alone. These outposts can be used, for example, to counter and fight the US and its allies in the Taiwan War. While the US does not have a right of its own in the South China Sea conflict, the waters there also remain a key priority for Washington's national security interests.
It's good for the wishes, but this time use for medication. Eating some level before speaking. Whatever I'm level 11, level recruit, level check, check of level. Zero, can be zero. Eight, eight is eight, eight, 9, 10. Basically, what is Damn. Seven, eight. It's medical. What?
Engineer transport inbound, protected from the enemy. It's our only chance to avert disaster. When you're ready, get to high ground and give a smoke signal to the engineer.
Medic, come in! Thanks!
Provide the car with safe passage. Destroy enemy explosive devices before they detonate.
Shooter sighted!
He's no more. Mike's been sighted.
Marksman pacified!
Good work. The turbine room is in this building.
Tango spotted! First aid kit!
They've hacked the control system and blocked the turbines. If we don't restore them, in a few minutes the dam will be gone and so will we. The engineer needs to manually fix the turbine sensors. Team, give him cover.
Support! Knock down! Get down!
New threat.
Enemy sighted! Shooter eliminated!
Enemy.
Swapping mag!
museum. Slow. Slow.